Addy soldiers. Oh, that highlight. She greasy. I know I'm on my floor for like the 6th or 7th video in a row, but look, I'm taking a dance class right now that is kicking my entire ass, and I'm tired, so we're gonna sit on the floor again today, if you'll allow it. And next week, I promise we'll be back in front of the bookshelves. Oh, that tea is piping hot in more ways than one. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a book blogger and reviewer, and I like to make video essays critiquing bookish stuff. And this week, people on the internet are mad at me. And it's very interesting. I recently made a TikTok that made the dark romance community very upset with me, and I would like to talk about it today. Now, full disclosure, this did happen a couple of weeks ago, but it's taken me this long to get my thoughts in order and have the actual time to film. Plus, there's been an interesting surge on TikTok recently. Discourse talking about being attacked for things that you like, and how you can technically read and like anything you want, but if you want to also post about it publicly, people then publicly also have the right to critique you on those choices. And I think the accountability conversation plays well with today's video topic. Second disclosure is that even though I was the one who initiated the inciting incident and had the idea to do this video, this script was technically mostly co-written by my good author friend AJ Vrana, so thank you, Alex, for helping me get all my thoughts together. Literally all week, I have been nervous to film this video, which really just shows like how batshit this entire situation is. Now that I'm here at night on my floor, I'm finding I really don't give a shit. I guess this Tetley calm tea really is doing its job. Third caveat is that I am not a psychologist, a behavioral scientist, or your therapist. I'm just somebody who has a degree in critiquing books and a person who has a lot of feelings. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and buckle in. Join me on my floor while we discuss what I did to piss off the dark romance community and why I'm not sorry about it. So firstly, for context, dark romance is a subgenre of romance novels that mostly focuses on darker themes and more mature topics. Instead of meet cutes and happily ever afters, they're mostly focusing on morally gray characters and stories that involve violence or trauma of some kind. Popular tropes that make up this subgenre include talking about mental illness, BDSM or kink, mafia romances, and in extremes, kidnapping, stalking, grape, and other types of SA sexual assault. I suppose I should give a bit of a content warning that I will not be going in depth in those topics, but like they are going to be mentioned because of how prevalent they are in dark romance. And well, I love me some morally gray characters. I love me some slightly unhealthy enemies to lovers. And I love mental health representation. Dark romance in general, I think, goes a little too far for me personally to enjoy a lot of it. I find the genre has themes that I either don't like or don't agree with, and so I tend to just not engage with that content in online spaces. The inciting incident of all of this happened a couple of weeks ago when I was at a publishing conference because I work in publishing and book distribution, and I had an experience where one of the imprints that was presenting their fall 2023 lineup had a book that was described as a serial killer grape romance novel. And so I made this TikTok in response.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck?
I am a comedic genius. Yeah, those 6 seconds are why everyone's mad at me. As is the case with a lot of taboo topics, those tend to be not presented by major publishing imprints, and especially not to many people, reps from, across Canada that are going to be putting that type of book in bookstores, because these conferences tend to focus on more like mainstream commercial fiction. So I posted it as an expression of shock and also to use that sound. And I thought I might get like a couple of snarky comments on it because I know that the dark romance community is like tight, but at the same time I'm like, this is vague and it's a trending sound and it's like literally not even that funny. And my poking fun at dark romance is nothing new. Like, people have been doing this for a long time. So I was a little surprised by the level of backlash that got. And even then, I didn't think too much of it until I had a mutual of mine message me about it. So this girl was a friendly mutual of mine who I knew read a lot of dark romance and was an advocate for the genre. But she wasn't only a dark romance blogger, so I just wouldn't interact with her dark romance stuff, and I would, comment on videos talking about other things. She DM'd me and very kindly asked me to take the video down because she stated that I didn't read dark romance, so I didn't know about it, and it wasn't fair for me to be judging people. This is supposed to be an inclusive, safe space for people to talk about their trauma, and I'm shaming it, and I don't understand. And I ended up what I thought was respectfully saying, no, I'm not going to take it down because, first of all, I'm making fun of a whole genre, not just like a specific book. I didn't name anybody or book in that video. And also that I truly do take issue with some of the extremes of the genre. And then she told me that myself and all of my social media pages were not safe spaces for dark romance readers, that I was hypocritical for criticizing dark romance books because I read problematic books, and then she blocked me. So we don't talk anymore. I can't go back and actually take screenshots because she blocked me, so our messages are gone. But I want to make it clear that I did not in my messages ever say that I thought that she or other dark romance readers were stupid or that they were like less worthy people. I never said that I was trying to invalidate her trauma, but I genuinely think that there are parts of the dark romance community that are toxic and unhealthy to engage with. The thing I find so odd is, as you can see from that TikTok, I was not making fun of a certain book or a certain author or even like anybody who reads dark romance. I was not making fun of the imprint. But so many people got very, very mad at me that I would dare poke fun at a genre. Because dark romance is a genre, and it's also open to critique, like any other genre is. And I've done tons of videos critiquing romance as a genre. A couple of videos ago, I did a romance trope jail. I like romance novels, but I also think that there are some tropes that are not healthy depictions of real-world relationships. And of course, it's all fiction, right? Like, it doesn't have to be exactly like real life. Even fiction is fantasy. But part of being a reviewer is talking about things that you do or don't like. And I'm allowed to not like something. And anything that anybody likes is open to critique. Like, I fully acknowledge that there are some books that I like that have ridiculous plot holes or weird pacing, or yes, the author has said something problematic in the past or in the book. Like, just because I like something or you like something doesn't mean that that thing automatically becomes flawless. Like, things that you like are inherently going to have flaws. I find whenever I try and poke fun at or critique dark romance, I get an immediate and vicious backlash. Like, I don't get if I critique any other genre. If I review fantasy, if I review sci-fi, if I review contemporary, like, I do not get that. It seems that I got 3 types of comments, so I would like to go over each of them with you right now. Number 1 is people going, well, if you don't like it, don't read it. And you know what? Fair. Like, I understand that not everything is for me, and not everything that I like is for you. Like, hold on, I'll show you. I literally have a deer skull on my bookshelf behind me in most of my videos. And, you yourself could look at that and be like, oh, she's not mentally well. But let's deconstruct the idea of not being able to criticize things that are not for me, right? Okay, so let's use the example of a book that I really don't like, and that is Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Robert. I'll put the cover here. I read this last year, and I will leave the video in which I talk more about it if you're interested in checking it out. This book has a breeding kink in it, and that is absolutely 100% not for me. So I can look at this critically and say, well, I didn't really like the writing that much. I think some of her other books are better. But overall, I'm not going to rate it poorly because I understand that I'm not the target audience for this. So, if a breeding kink is your boat, float in it. But in dark romance, for example, there are themes that I think on a conceptual level are things that should not be romanticized or glorified. I also personally think this about a lot of things. For example, I don't think we should be glorifying serial killers, but look how many freaking Netflix documentaries there are. And as much as you can say, oh, but we're listening to the podcast so we know how to protect ourselves, and oh, this isn't a movie, this is a documentary about something that happened in real life. Sure. But the way that those things are being presented to you is by a beauty guru doing her makeup while talking about a gruesome murder, or Netflix casting a hot guy to play the serial killer instead of some creepy gross dude who you probably would not want to engage with. Books that center falling in love with kidnappers or assaulters are being marketed as sexy and romantic. Like, yes, I do have a problem with that. You want me to glorify and actively want one of the most horrifying, violating things I could possibly think of happening to my body. But am I not allowed to comment on something that makes me uncomfortable? Am I just supposed to pretend it doesn't exist? I feel like a crotchety conservative when I say I have the right to disagree with something, because that is an argument that is used to harm people in much bigger ways. And I understand that dark romance is supposed to be a space about mental health and working through trauma and having an inclusive space for intense feelings to be discussed and expressed. But I also believe it's desensitizing and romanticizing things that on a societal level should not be acceptable, no matter how different that you are. Like if you're like, oh my god, that guy who kills people is so sexy, and I'm like, that guy kills people, and you're like, yeah, but it's part of the genre. I'm like, he still kills people. What? And because me critiquing dark romance is nothing new, another comment that I often got in that comment section was, oh, so we're shaming dark romance readers again, are we? And to that I ask, where in that TikTok did I shame you? I would like to know, like, actually, where did I shame you in those 6 seconds? If you are rabidly defensive against something that is meant for public consumption, you might want to think about why that's so personal to you, because otherwise you wouldn't feel the need to protect it from other people's criticisms. Like, me critiquing the genre of dark romance is not the same thing as me critiquing one person's trauma. And also, critique is not intolerance. Like, I think that there is a space in dark romance to explore sexual trauma and to explore falling in love while also having major mental health struggles, or to, use a safe space to explore a new kink. I'm not critiquing your trauma, I'm critiquing the things that gave you that trauma. Like, for example, let's look at SA victims. This is something that in real life is incredibly difficult to get justice for actual rape victims. Because we live in a patriarchal society, a lot of times people that come forward with that allegation are not believed, or people ask, oh, well, what were you wearing? Were you drunk? And even if it does go to court, usually the assaulter does not get jail time. Sometimes the person that was assaulted can't even get a restraining order. These are deeply horrifying and violating things that are happening to somebody, and yet you want to put that in a romance book and be like, oh my god, but like they totally work it out in the end and like get married, so it's okay. What? No. But if people want to use a SA romance as a way to process their own trauma as something that's happened to them and kind of rewrite the script, use it as a way to make peace with it, I can understand that. And I'm not trying to say that, like, you're not allowed to do that, or, like, I think that you shouldn't do that. But I also don't think that we should be saying, oh, but these books hold some sort of macabre beauty that only I could understand. Because at the same time, if you're going to rewrite your script as, something horrible happens and then they fall in love, that's still justifying something horrible. But why is criticism of sexual assault romance novels a personal attack on you? If we take books out of it, if we take people out of it, can we just look at that and say, hey, maybe romanticizing sexual assault is a bad thing that we should not be doing? And yes, I'm generalizing to the nth degree here, but why can the dark romance community, in particular, not take accountability for the fact that some of their genre is actually incredibly harmful? Because really, what in that TikTok was I expressing that was so offensive? Like, I wasn't talking or slandering a certain author or a certain book. I wasn't coming for people's rights. I wasn't saying, like, fuck your trauma. I was expressing personal shock at a traditional publisher publishing a SA romance novel. And I don't understand how that has been reframed as me shaming the entire dark romance community. And comment type number 3 is, well, you like insert book here, so you're a hypocrite. Now, the book that this ex-friend of mine was referring to was Ninth House, because as you have seen, probably if you're on the internet at all, I'm a pretty big advocate for the sequel Hellbent. I thought it was a very good sequel. And I'm not trying to say that, like, I don't think Lee did anything wrong. I think maybe there should have been some rewrites, but at the same time, I also don't agree with, like, everything that everybody is saying. So are you trying to say that you think that I don't deserve to be shamed, or that I won't accept criticism of something I like because I like it? Which, like, no, you're allowed to critique something that I read as much as I'm allowed to critique something that you like to read. Like, I'm not above criticism. And if it was such a huge deal that I liked a problematic book and you thought that was wrong, why are you only bringing it up now after I've said I didn't like something you liked? Because I think that if this was really the issue and you had such a problem with me reading this problematic author, that you would have said something beforehand. Oh my god. It's already been so long. I do have more to say, but I need to take a break. So we're taking a sip of tea. 1 second. All right, we're bringing it back in. I want to talk about the safe space comment. So this ex-friend of mine said that, my page was not a safe space and that she would let other dark romance readers know that I was not a safe space for romance readers. And I don't know what she means. Is her idea of a safe space a place where no one questions you? And why do you feel the need to be kept protected against any kind of critique or question about the genre? Because if someone questions you about it, you feel personally attacked. You might want to unpack that. And why does your safe space come at the expense of other people's feelings towards it? Like, if your safe space was horror movies, and we were getting together to watch a movie, and I said, I actually don't really like horror movies, like, I'm really bad with gore, and so I can't watch it. And you say, well, horror movies are my safe space, so we have to watch one. That doesn't make any sense. Why can I not express discomfort around something without being told that I'm bullying someone? And this also kind of goes back to what's happening on TikTok right now, where if you're only curating a space where nobody questions anything that you do, I think that's also unhealthy, because that means that you can never grow. In this scenario, if you only read dark romance and you read 16 dark romances in a row, at what point are you done processing your trauma and you're just re-traumatizing yourself? Because if you're only in that headspace all the time, that's also like not a good way to live, because you've then trapped yourself in this kind of unhealthy catharsis. If you keep going back to them and you can't bear to hear somebody express an opposing opinion to yours, I don't think that that's a healthy way to engage with this media. And commenting on it being an inclusive space, like, if you're talking about it being inclusive as like a lot of women read it, you could say that for romance in general. But I don't actually think it's a very inclusive space, because it's only inclusive of people who don't examine it critically. I've been called unfeminist because I don't agree with all of dark romance, and I'm like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. No matter how I approach it, people will come back at me with, well, it's my kink and it's my trauma, so you can't judge me for it. So what's happening is that people are going and finding more people that like the same thing or more extreme than them and going, well, I don't have to be ashamed of this because I found more people that like it. So all of your validation is external and you're not actually thinking about what it means to you. So dark romance just becomes this big echo chamber of people like gaslighting others into accepting like bigger and bigger kinks or deeper and darker trauma until it's everything goes. And it's like, should everything go? This goes back to the thing on TikTok of like, people want to enjoy things and not have to think about any of the repercussions of them talking about that thing. They think that they're above reproach, which yet again is the thing of like, how dare you criticize things you don't like? Like, that's what reviews are. And look, if you want to yell at me about me critiquing somebody who wrote a short fiction story, recontextualizing their trauma to help them work through it, fine. But why are they monetizing it? Because if this was an important therapy tool for them, why do they feel like other people need to pay money for it? Another scapegoat I've seen recently is people saying, oh, but there's trigger warnings, so you should check the trigger warnings. But I don't think that's a good rebuttal either. I'm not arguing that trigger warnings and content warnings are not good. I think they're great. I think that a lot more books should implement them. To invoke trigger warnings as this kind of ex machina catch-all is very victim blaming, because if you know that there are content warnings and you read it anyway and then you get triggered, well, then it's your fault. Like, labeling something with trigger warning does not mean that is a get out of jail free card to excuse the fact that you still wrote about that thing. So yes, while your tolerance for things may be different than my tolerance for things, that still doesn't mean that I can't express when I think something has gone too far. Like, you have every right to express that you don't like my review, but you also can't make me stop feeling the way that I feel about it. And you can't try to say that I'm a bully or I'm shaming people to try and manipulate me into never critiquing dark romance ever again. And this whole thing may have gone very differently if this person, ex-friend of mine, had messaged me in a different way. I like to think that I'm an empathetic and sympathetic person, and if this ex-friend of mine had come to me and said, like, hey, your video makes me feel like I'm a bad person. The way that you came across made it sound like, you hate everybody that reads dark romance. I think I would have been like, oh shit, like that was not my intention. Of course I'll take it down. But instead her argument was that I was shaming people and that I was being judgmental. And in that way is like she's saying that I need to change my opinion to accommodate her and all dark romance readers because I shouldn't be saying anything bad about it. And like, yes, I'm willing to change my behavior when I'm hurting other people. But in this scenario, I truly do not think I did. You've seen the TikTok, I'm just like, where in that? And also, I've literally made worse, more in-depth critiques over other genres. But it's like, why dark romance in particular? Am I not allowed to say anything bad about it? And you, ex-friend or dark romance community, like, can you not make fun of something that you like? I love making fun of things that I like. And like, let's use SJM as an example. The Throne of Glass, the ACOTAR series. Big fan base, very loyal fan base. Hilariously enough, one of the authors that is being discussed in this I just want to read whatever I want to read TikToks because SJM is a terrible person and wow, we should maybe not be supporting her. People that love ACOTAR also love making fun of ACOTAR. And it deserves to be made fun of. SJM literally put an oral sex scene in the middle of a war camp on which the cries of the dead and dying were drowned out by Rhysand growling his approval over the mountaintops. How in the world is that something that you don't make fun of? So it's like, I'm sorry, you're reading books where a character removes an eyeball so that a man can fuck her through her skull, and I'm not allowed to have some thoughts about it? That is absurd, and also sounds like pink eye. Actually, before we wrap up this video fully, I do want to make a point about the men in these dark romance books. For the most part, and I could be wrong on this, so let me know, these dark romance books, like the dark romance community, is very heterosexual, or at least there's a lot of straight passing romance novels. The men in these books are extremely heterosexually strong and masculine. Like, they're physically large, they're physically beefy, they're very gruff, they don't express feelings, they're very aggressive or very easy to anger or do violence upon someone. And often because they are usually, the person in power or the aggressor, the woman will the power of boobs will make this guy soft and fall in love with her and etc, happily ever after, even though he's done horrible things. Which I find ironic because the main point of these dark romance novels is the female protagonist somehow changing the male love interest and like forcibly changing him into being a more acceptable person, yet also at the same time trying to change how I feel about things so that they can get what they want. Regardless of gender, let me say this to you right now. You are not less of a person if you let your feelings show. You are not less of a person or less of a man if you confront your negative feelings and work through your trauma. In fact, it might be even more cathartic for a reader to see a character working through their own negative emotions. And that is why we will do a shameless plug for The Hollow Gods by A.J. Vrana and its subsequent sequels, where our main bad boy love interest, Kai Donovan, is in fact working through his shit, and yet he's one of the scariest motherfuckers that I have read in a long time. Cover looks like this. Go support my script co-writer by buying her book. Thank you very much. And if you want to read stories that center a tall, scary, dark, sexy man, like, alright, great. Sure, who doesn't love one of those these days? I haven't dated a man in a really long time, I'm sorry. And here we all were thinking that editing Rachel wasn't going to be making an appearance. So apparently some people like editing Rachel, so this one's for you. Mwah. I thought about this after filming the video and want to just put in a little thing here on kink in particular and BDSM. I think kink is what a lot of people are referring to when they talk about safe space, and I actually think it's a great thing to be able to explore something that maybe you're not sure about in a fictional fantasy way. That way you're not doing it in person and maybe realizing in the moment that something isn't for you. You can do it in your mind and then not have to worry about causing yourself the same distress that would occur if you were there physically doing it. And because BDSM and kink are such a big part of dark romance, like, yes, that is like what a good chunk of the subgenre is. I'm kink friendly and have a knowledge of the BDSM community, but that's also where I have a problem because a lot of the depictions of BDSM are not actually in a safe manner. Like, there's nothing morally wrong about you wanting to enact a kidnapping scene, but when dark romance books do them, they're not in a controlled environment. The main character is usually taken unaware or is scared or is being forced to do something against her will, but then it gets recontextualized as, oh, but actually she gets turned on by being scared, or, oh, but she still has an orgasm, so it's totally okay that this guy just choked her and she liked it. Like, no, that is bad messaging. Literally, the point of the BDSM community is to explore unconventional, unusual interests in a safe, controlled environment where there is consent, where people in the room have knowledge of your triggers and of your body. Before you even engage in kink with a partner or partners, like, you should all be on the same playing field. You should all have an understanding of how the scene or how the interaction is going to go. Just like I complain in regular romance novels how enemies to lovers is not two characters yelling and then kissing and then yelling and then kissing. Kink is not getting kidnapped, shoved up against a wall, choked, and then also sort of assaulted, and then going, oh, but he's like hot, so I guess this is okay. Unless your book is literally talking about sexual trauma and like working through something that happened to the character and like having them work through that in, again, a controlled environment with somebody that they trust further in their life, I don't believe it. You can go to deep and traumatic places and like work through a lot of things that have to do with your body and how you feel about your body and how you feel about sex and identity, but it's not kink if you don't consent to it. That's just assault. And I'm tired of people being like, ooh, this is sexy. I'm like, no, literally that man should be in jail. Oh, back to the video. And of course, people understand that things are fiction. But at the same time, when you are constantly in that space, sometimes those lines get blurred. And I always go back to the example of when I was a young teen, YA was really booming. And all of these dark, mysterious love interests, were unfeeling, were gruff, didn't express emotions. And I was reading so much of that I was like, oh, that is what I'm supposed to be attracted to. So I had some horrible relationships in my teens and early 20s because the media that I was consuming told me that that was the type of person that I should want to be with. And in the case of dark romance, I feel like a lot of people are pressuring themselves and others to like and consume and romanticize and sexualize more and more intense things that maybe shouldn't be sexy things, or at least not sexualizing things that have not overcome or transcended their negative impacts. And because publishing is becoming so diverse, like, that's a great thing, and we're learning so much more about ourselves and about other people and about storytelling. Being inclusive and open-minded is a good thing to do, right? Because we should constantly be learning and growing and like having our eyes open to the experiences of others. I don't necessarily think that every experience that everybody has is something that should be publicized, romanticized, monetized, and defended to such a degree that any amount of criticism is considered bad. I've heard a lot from various romance readers and dark romance readers about the genre, and yet again, I'm not saying that this is like, that it shouldn't exist, or that there isn't space for traumatic, violent, morally gray things to exist, but I do take issue with the extremes of the genre. Mic drop. I don't want to drop my mic. This already broke on me once. You're just gonna have to use your imagination. Okay, I did pretty good on that. This was how many pages? 5, 6 pages of notes. We got through it in a decent amount of time. Like, I still have time for a shower before midnight. As is any time anybody gives a hard opinion on the internet, I do have a feeling I'm still going to get backlash in my comments. And, like, honestly, leave them. It ups my engagement. Just sitting here now, upon reflection, I realize I don't even know who this video is for. Like, I guess it's just me getting my thoughts out. And if you agree with me or you want to talk about it, like, sure, leave a comment. But I'm like, if you're a hardcore dark romance reader, you're probably going to hate this video anyways. So I guess it's not for the actual dark romance community. I guess it's for people who, like, also have this issue, or people who maybe are, like, casual dark romance readers. Actually, I'd love to learn from the casual dark romance readers, like, how do you hop in and out of headspaces like that? I wanted this video to be fun, and it turned out to be more of like a sad video essay. Oh god. I guess in that case, leave me whatever comments you want to leave. I promise I'll be back in front of my bookshelf soon. But right now, I feel like it's gonna be a struggle to get up off the floor. Maybe this was a bad idea. I can throw it back like a real one, but apparently that also includes throwing my back out. Thank you all for joining me this evening. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are having a nice day or night wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!